Good morning, and how are you this morning? This is Delenn Russell, and we are here once again on the Datcraft 73 Java server for Patreon members, and we're back to Diggy Diggy Dig. Yes, we still want to get this thing down. I am looking forward to putting in the pixel art, but we have a ways to go. We are actually not at 91 around here. We are actually down at 84, so we're making some progress. We have a couple of holes to fill along the way. But we actually want to I've decided we're going to go down to 70 because that's still a rise from the base. I filled in this part down to 70, but I discovered further over out there's some stuff that's not. So we'll just keep piling away at this one and see what we can get things rolling a little bit quicker. I forgot. Ditch this. What? Random one. Go in another one. Put in here for now. That takes less space, and this one will be our dirt. All right. As you.
Hello.
Good morning, Fantastic Sherlock Fox. Looks like your Twitch may still need a new user icon because it brings down one that is not
Hello.
That's okay. Morning, Creef, or sorry, should I say good late evening, I suppose? Welcome on in. It must mean my notifications actually work this time, because they seem to decide when they want to work and when they don't. Up layer out of the road. So one of the things, evening. Yep. I will never remember, always, to check my world clock before I start streaming and figure out what time it is where you are. So yeah, apologies for that one. I mean, I could pull an Avomance and do, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to Delenn Russell. Without the wonderful British accent that Avomance has. So how was your weekend, future person? And honestly, even Fantastic Sherlock Fox, how was your morning, future person? I am definitely not an early riser. I'm not sure quite what's going on lately, but I'm using my system not to get up, even after a deep number of hours sleep. So there's something going sideways there, but that's okay. I was kind of curious how our fine friend overseas and how your week has been going, Creef. Well, I can understand that. I mean, one of the things you've mentioned in the past is sometimes for business reasons, you need to deal with other time zones and occasionally shift your activity to be able to make the business come. I could totally follow that. Our weekend was actually pretty uneventful. Well, I know how to fill it entirely, but we had soccer for each of the kids, or football to you, to each of the kids. One on Saturday and one on Sunday. The games went okay. I think our team might have been creamed both times, but that's okay because they're at a level where it really doesn't matter. I mean, the kids themselves like to be a little competitive. The teams, I mean, but our kids don't really seem to mind. They both put in some half-decent efforts, and so I was pleased with that. But one of those families for whom we'll work minor errands like grocery shopping, or if we need something major, I guess in short term, around an activity like that. But for the most part, that is our activity. Just because kids tend to feel like they're over-scheduled as well. Well, I'm not sure actually if you're familiar with where the term soccer comes from. Long story made super short because I'm not very good at the details, but apparently there used to be two different associations in the UK for football or soccer. And so what came to be known as soccer in North America and some other parts of the world was known as association football. So I'm not sure how they got soccer out of association, but it had to do with two slightly different rule sets, which is interesting because if you watch UK football, they don't actually have a whole lot of rules that are all that different from soccer in other parts of the world. I'm not really sure what happened with that. I mean, there's more to the story than that, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a bit of a, as I understand, a bit of a snotty difference between one association of football and another. And so yeah, the term came to be soccer. So apparently the Commonwealth picked up on the association football rules, whereas the UK just kept the original term. Yeah, that's the long story short. But I think the other thing too is I actually like the term football better. I really do think that North American football needs to change its name because you very rarely use your foot in the whole thing. And I mean, in the same sort of vein though, somebody joked to me once that rugby doesn't necessarily need to be called rugby because it's got absolutely nothing to do with rugs. But I thought was kind of funny, unless you wanted to assume that every single player in a game will probably deal with rug burn. Slipping on the grass. Yeah, so I would definitely suggest looking into that, the history of the term, because it's kind of neat. But, so anyway, and I gather that later this month, I think you'd said round about the 20th, start having the return to spring, or well, the early edge of the return to spring, midwinter, I suppose, because you're in the southern hemisphere, if I remember correctly. Strangely enough, one of the things I like about this sort of mining is the rhythmic, well, semi-rhythmic part of it. I can sort of get lulled by that and start staring at the screen, so if I do fall quiet, please let me know. If someone would like to try typing in chat, brand new command, !QOTD, I'd like to know if that works, because that's a brand new question of the day command, and I'm going to be trying to update that daily. If not, I'm hoping to be able to put in a random poll so that I don't even know what the question is, but today's question of the day was put in manually. Winter solstice, okay, yeah. We think of, it's funny, in North America, a lot of us run our summers around July and August, but truthfully the solstices are actually, they come in June. So if we were to actually split our calendars based on, or calendar behavior, I guess, based on solar seasons with regards to how our planet has solstices, then we might actually have a very different calendar, but I don't know quite why they decided New Year has to be on a date that doesn't fit that, but somebody in their infinite wisdom decided, and I'm sure there's probably a reason for it. Today's question of the day is, what is one of the silliest or dumbest things you've done recently that resulted in some sort of minor injury or major? That was just one that struck me a little bit this morning from a list I was looking at. And Murphy's Law, I was heading down to stream and promptly got distracted while I was filling my coffee and overfilled it, and it burnt. Not burnt, it burnt me. Winter gets a lot worse for us in early August. Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's a lot like up here. Our worst months winter-wise are January and February, so it does make sense with the flipping of the hemispheres. We can come back to the question of the day later. I just wanted to make sure the command worked. When you say worse for you guys, does that mean it's far more rainy, unpredictable weather, or is it does it actually get like the coldest months you see with the equivalency of deep freezes down there? I'm quite curious. Because just because someone lives on the other hemisphere does not mean that they're going to be living on what is the equivalent parallel to someone in the northern hemisphere, so it's not purely a latitude switch. I find it kind of interesting that, at least in North America, there's quite large chunks. Good morning, Zerk. How are you this morning? So, so Krief says that that July and early August are the coldest. That sounds about right for us. We got our deep freezes, as I said, in January and February, and February is typically the coldest. Except if you say, thank goodness it's the shortest month, which, in all honesty, probably doesn't matter a whole lot. So when you say coldest, Krief, I'm just curious, what sort of cold do you guys get? Because I'm in southern Alberta of Canada, so the western part, and not deep south, sort of like those guys and
Hello.
Good morning, PP Zerk. Don't let them get me. I have friends nearby, don't let them get me. Oh, those friends. Yes, yes. Your grumpy neighbors. Probably mad that I ripped down their tower. Let's see. I know. Where did I put it? I'm pretty sure my red box has safety milk, so hot shots of these punks. How far can I get? Ooh, not bad. Yes, I know. I don't like you. Okay. Cold -3 or -4. Ooh. Yes, this is why I should come visit someday. Or at least that region. We get, what did we get this? This year wasn't too bad, but some years we've had, low to mid, that sounds funny, low to mid -30s Celsius, where, you get to the point where below about we get about -23, I guess. It starts being basically the same number in the US. Pretty close, anyways. Funny when my inventory is too full to pick up a head. Yeah, I don't think you would like it up here. You would be totally out, for sure. Sure. I mean, that's part of the reason why Canadians, unfortunately, in some parts of the world, still have the ridiculous reputation of supposedly living in igloos, regardless of whether or not that's true. I find it kind of amusing. But in our neighborhood, in our neck of the woods, I guess, we get what's called Chinooks. And basically it's just a warming of the winter weather. But the problem with that, I find, is that it's very difficult to acclimatize your body to that. So I find that it feels cold all the time. Whereas up where Arch Thunder lives, about 3 or 4 hours north of us, well, okay, if you drive properly, it's about 3.5. Way up there, it's actually relatively constant. So once they get winter, it stays winter. So you'll actually find people even 3 to 5 hours northeast-ish of Arch that they'll go shovel snow in their t-shirt and shorts. I think they're ridiculously crazy people up there, but it's just once you've acclimatized, you can start to put yourself. So I mean, people in Canada laugh when we hear about people in Australia or South Africa or places like that saying it's cold at -3 or -4. We're like, oh well, we're not quite ready to have a picnic, but let's go go skating or whatever, hot chocolate, etc. A little different, that's all. Although, Zerk, I would bet where you are is probably more humid than we are. And definitely would be more humid where Krief is. And one of the things I've learned over the years, dry cold is far more preferable to me than wet cold, yes. Because I find that the damp will sink in and make me feel really chilled from the inside. So, for example, I got wet yesterday coming home from a Cub meeting because I figured, oh yeah, we're headed from the shelter straight to the car, no big deal. Completely forgot I had to make a stop at one of the other leaders' vehicles. So I was just standing out there with no hood up in the rain and I had long hair. And it wasn't bad, I didn't get soaked, but I just got wet enough that this morning I'm actually wearing a long sleeve waffle weave shirt. So that's kind of crazy because like the thermometer in our bedroom says the internal temperature in the room was 22 Celsius, which is pretty warm. Room temperature is about 20-21 for most people. Yeah, I guess I guess actually, Zorka, you did mention at one point that you guys are part of the U.S. where it is a lot drier, so maybe it's a bit more like Prairie Alberta. It's not that bad, actually. Though I will admit, still, we do not envy parts of the U.S. with some of their storms we've been having the last year or two. We haven't been having major storms like that, so of course we get is like crazy hail and odd major windstorm that rips things around pretty good. But windstorms are nothing up here like what we've been talking about in the U.S., where you can uproot a tree and then chuck it through a house. Like, that's not the kind of thing. Yes, actually, that does make sense, Creep. I honestly thought yours would be more moist, but I guess it's just the way the Southern Hemisphere jet stream for you goes, that it would probably not necessarily dump a whole lot of moisture on you. It's actually kind of funny because some parts of the world do have what would be considered dry coast, so they may be within a reasonable distance of the coast, but not be moist. It doesn't have to be once near the coast. There's even portions of like, for example, the Hawaiian Islands, which are stereotypically tropical. There's even portions of them centrally that actually, while being the coast of a volcano, that part of the reason they stay looking like a volcano is just because that portion tends to be dry enough that elsewhere on the islands gets the rain, and that part doesn't, which is part of why things just have not sprouted on the side of the volcano. So, while some of us laugh up here about the Southern Hemisphere folks in our community, saying, "Oh my goodness, it's cold, I had to put on the heater and stuff," but sometimes it's the humidity, and sometimes we have to keep in mind that it's all relative. Besides, I mean, those poor folks will soon be putting up with us crying all around, so to speak, or about how hot it is. I still smile because in our part of the country, we don't hear the phrase "crying all around." I mean, we hear "crying all around" sometimes, but or people whining about or crying about or whinging in some very, very rare instances. Those are usually the UK expats, say stuff like that. But I get a bit of a smirk when people talk about BC crying all around. That's DadCrash73. Well, you know, I was thinking about snickering a little bit when Carnage Joe was talking. She's in Australia, for those who aren't aware. But I was thinking a little bit about snickering when she was talking about she was cold at 17 and plus 17 Celsius and had to put on the heater. Well, in her case, it was like the reverse aircon, as she put it. I don't have aircon in my house, so I'm not really sure about that. But anyway, but then I realized where she said she can see, I think she said Fraser Island. But anyways, she's fairly coastal. So she did, and she was talking a lot about rain and moisture and stuff. And in that case, I think I'd give her a bit of a buy. The same sort of way that in Canada, we sort of snicker at people who live on like the Vancouver coast. When they say, "Oh, it's so cold," and they got down to +7. And they start taking out their sweaters and, you know, not quite their layered jackets or anything like that, but they're dressing a little warmer. And I laugh at them a little bit, but on the other hand, I also recognize that they get sea breezes that make them kind of cold. So I'll give them a bit of a buy. And when it comes to moisture, I'm still thankful that I'm not part of our eastern part of the country. There's pictures easily findable all over the internet about Atlantic Canada winters, and they've got all kinds of memes regarding things like people who get snowed in their houses, and they can't get out of the door because it's well above the height of one story. So they will do joking things like dig holes in the snow right outside their door and put their beers in there. Or there's other pictures you'll find of things like where it got snowed in bad enough that when people dug down 3 or 4 feet, so about a meter, that's when they find the blinky light on the top of the parked yellow school bus. And so I'm really thankful that I don't live out there, because that would be somewhat insane. Fantastic Shock Fox is a little bit better at remembering that than I am, but I think we tend to get max temps probably think the last couple of years we've seen about 34, 35, although the some areas did get closer to I think 41 or 42. So I mean, I do recognize that other countries get much higher maxes than we do. One of the other things is, though they have what's called a wind chill factor, every once in a while you run into a channel that will also give you a feels like temperature based on the humidity effect, or lack of humidity here. And they'll be able to tell you like the reverse in terms of like how warm it feels because of how dry it is. So we usually get about 2 or 3 degrees Celsius off that as well. And once again, it's all about acclimatization, right? So while people say we like going to tropical places because it's nice, but you can't cool off. In other parts of Canada where it's more humid, that's the same issue. We don't get super high temps, but can't really cool off because. So in other words, you don't get. So then, where you are, Creef, then sounds like it's got temperatures that are, strange enough, a similar temperature band to where we are, even though it's not a parallel in terms of latitude. It's not like you can just put the planet upside down and roughly be in the same spot as your buddy. Apologies for tense in terms of first person, third person. Holy moly! I don't think I've had this many visitors in the last week. Goodness gracious. Okay. The southern part of our province sees 40s more often than we do. I'm kind of thankful that we don't see 40s as much because we have an issue with the last few years with our farmers not being able to get enough water for their farms. We're not exactly droughts, but they're doing their crying because they don't have enough enough moisture. We're also getting not enough snowfall to get the lower, or I guess you'd say water table high enough to compensate for not having the rainfall. So the ones who are doing half decently are some of the farmers, not some of the farmers, sorry, some of the ranchers, because they can grow their cattle on scrub pretty much and not much. But the ones that are doing agricultural, like actual farming of plants and stuff, think about that, right? Agriculture. Those guys are having a horrible time lately. Yeah, well, I'm not too fussed about it. Like, I don't mind having bad omen, as long as I don't go back to my village. That's the key. And I recognize that I've got a risk right now, because I think I'm far enough away from the village that I shouldn't do too much about it. I'm not fully sure. Cobblestone, where did I get that from? But I want to make sure I've got the emergency milk just in case, because if my tools run short, something, and I need to go do repairs, then I want to make sure I'm not running back in to my library building with bad omen. That would just be, well, a bad omen. That's why I cared about having it. Okay, crossbow. Travel. Banners. Although if I wanted heads and banners, I'm getting more from mining out here in the last couple of rounds than I have from my farm, or the raid farm. Okay, I still find the raid farm fun, even though it's not very productive. Some raids just time themselves out, and other raids actually, it's just because I haven't taken the time to go through and ensure I've got absolutely every tunnel filled. I've got enough filled that I haven't got guys stuck down there, but sometimes it feels like forever and a day to get anybody to show up. So, yeah. Not the world's most productive raid farm, but I learned a lot. The question for you guys that are in the chat, and for any viewers who want to pop in if you're lurking about, just curious, are you into the hype for 1.19, or does it really matter to you? And if you're interested, what is it about 1.19 that appeals to you, either as a player or as a viewer? So, you know, like if you're not playing, what, or if you're not going to be playing the new content, what is it about the new content that you would watch someone else? This isn't about me, it's just a general question. Because as I had posted it around a couple of places, 1.19 doesn't really hold a thrill for me. I admit to being a grand chicken. Don't have any interest in getting myself fully destroyed by trying to go to the ancient cities. There's not a whole lot of stuff that I've seen yet which really makes me go, must have that, in terms of supplies from down there. And I'm debating about whether or not I'm going to make the trek at some point to grab a sapling or two from the mangroves, but because our server is not going to be doing a trim, then it would be far out. While I don't have a problem with doing a long trek, it's just one of those epic things that I would need to actually just make time for. You're quite interested in the deep dark. New non-orange wood, of course, that would get your attention. In all honesty, I mean, while I understand that people don't like particular colors, and they don't click with them, sometimes I think we make a really big deal out of it. And I recognize that my village is very orange, but then on the other hand, it doesn't rain, so pick the non-rain. Yeah, the experiments that people have been doing above ground by creative summoning the Warden just to see what it can do and what its effects are, I'm not super keen on it. Aside from, like, it's hard. So there's that. Aw, poor piggy. Well, you're stuck. Tough luck. But also that sonic boom that the Warden has. Not look like a cup of tea. Not to mention, I'm annoyed enough as it is with having to deal with blindness as a result of squid ink sometimes. That's a very, very, very minor thing. But this whole pulsing darkness thing that the Warden can do, I'll stay away from that. I have no objection to watching others, and I probably will watch others who are doing that type of material. It's not something I personally want to do on. It's fun to be overly dramatic about something. It just eventually, and as far as the orange goes, yeah, it's, I'm not just the ADD about stuff. It's maybe it's from being a parent. I don't know, like of younger kids. But I find that my interest and patience in razzing somebody about something eventually wears thin, and that's fine if other people want to keep doing it. But it's just one of the things that I find I can't keep it up and keep it funny. So stop picking on people about things, but I don't stop apologizing for it when I do it. So, for example, like, I probably wouldn't, if I had more of the orange wood exposed in the village or spent a lot more time in the village for my base, at any height that would be, paying attention to the roofs or whatever, I probably would be continually apologizing for the orange wood. But it's funny because after the conversations with the Zerks, particularly Zerk, about the color orange, it's actually unintentionally, but now more by habit, become the #1 target in my storage when I'm just looking for wood to make into something that doesn't end up showing the color. Like, I'm going to turn it into, I don't know, a hopper, or I'm going to turn it into, like, sticks for something or other. That I find the orange wood is my #1 target. It's almost like I want to get rid of it. But I don't really want to get rid of it. It's just, I don't know, it's become a habit that way. The frog lights I'm kind of curious about. But I don't yet have a build that needs them, so that's part of why I wasn't jumping up and down about it. So it will be interesting to see others making things, and I've been watching a few people like Gruva playing with farms involving them. Like, for example, he was working on a Trident killer, I think it was a week ago, where it seemed to handle just about everything really well, but then things like magma cubes caused a problem. So somebody suggested, well, why not? He was playing in the snapshot, why not try adding some frogs to the farm? He managed to set them up in a way where they're stuck in mine carts away from the Trident killer, as in one block past it. But as they, the magma cubes would come down and split when the Trident killer hit them, frog just suck them up, spit out the frog lights, right where they had sucked up the magma cube from, which allowed the drop of the frog light to end up in the same item collection system as everything from the Trident killer. So I thought that was kind of a neat little action. Yeah, I was quite mesmerized when we raided Gruva that day. Let's take that back. Well, sad part about me trying to follow chat creep is, unfortunately, sometimes by the time I see a comment like that, I completely forgot what I've said. So I will apologize for it, but I can't exactly take it back. Spruces for. Actually, it's kind of funny. I do at the moment have less spruce than many other ones, but I've got a whiteboard beside me, the listing of things I need to get done. Just stream-wise and Minecraft-wise, and a couple of the Minecraft things on there. Get a mangrove sapling eventually. Work out the bike that I've gotten planned. Mine more blackstone and basalt, which means, put on my big girl pants and go to the nether. Farming more nether woods. To farm more jungle wood. To eventually get the guts to go mining for netherite. Not that I'm chicken or anything like that, just hasn't been high priority. And then find a space at my base to post signs of to-do items on a wall. Which that last one is completely low priority because I've got the whiteboard. I do live in a savanna. Yeah, so it makes sense that it's there. But I kind of deforested part of it. And I figured bark of the acacia trees isn't too bad. I actually like the bark on that one. I wish they'd use it elsewhere. And the other thing is when I'm using the resource packs where it gives it a slightly more realistic look, like the one like I've got right now, then the acacia wood isn't nearly as orange as it is other times. So it doesn't bug me quite much. So therefore, I find that I can survive a little bit more and I just leave it be. It comes out a little bit more pinkish, usually enough. Yeah, I thought the Savannah was great because I didn't like I didn't like the rain. And it's not for any other reason than it just makes everything look dark. Dark for me. But, about that conversely, of course, as I mentioned in the past, the nearby biomes will start dumping their Endermen my way as soon as it's raining elsewhere. So it rains around me and then I end up with like 3 or 4 Endermen just popping out. Turning off Enderman griefing. Very, very useful. Not critical, but useful. Yes, I will say the acacia doors are probably, well, I don't know. I think, screenshot. Okay. That mess. I will say the acacia doors. Oh, yes, gotcha. Ha ha ha. I'm gonna catch on to that. Good one, Creef. I like the designs of some of the doors, but actually, strange enough, it occurred to me the other day, I can't remember why I was doing it, but it occurred to me the other day that one of the things the acacia door shape would be fun for, when one's doing sort of a semi-realistic build, not always, but a semi-realistic, semi-modern build, what they remind me of is up here, sometimes you'll find our city, people will have security storm doors. So basically what that means is that they're calling them storm doors, but really what it is like a, I guess we call them a screen door on a lot of houses. It's just that it's a little more heavy duty bars and stuff for security purposes. But that way you can lock your screen door, but have the inner door open for airflow. And yeah, it'll come back to haunt you, I'm sure, Zerk. On the other hand, I wasn't running the Purple Heartwood pack. I really should take a look into that one. And we need a new screenshot, right? Anyway, so we find a lot of doors very much of the acacia shape because of the bars and stuff up here, and people are using them as the security door. So if one was doing a build with that sort of vein in mind, it would look somewhat realistic. I would honestly love to have more variety of shapes, designs possible in the doors, but I know that's definitely not what vanilla Minecraft is for, and that's definitely what modded and resource packs and stuff are about. I don't have a problem with that. 83, well, we got 13 levels to go, woohoo! On the other hand, made it down in a couple of spots to the corner of the map, so we'll slowly work our way across as we get going. That doesn't make any sense. Chicken. Love, yeah. I mean, in the same vein, I would love to get ebony wood in the game. For myself, probably even more heartwood. I think it would be kind of neat to have an ebony product, although prior to more woods, I really, really would like to have maybe something along the lines of like a, I don't know, single block sawmill or something, kind of like the stone cutter, because it's kind of unfair that, not really unfair, I guess, but uneven, that there's a lot of things we can make, you know, stairs and slabs and whatnot out of, where we can't use the one-to-one equivalencies in the wood side. On the other hand, we can't make like bricks out of, or brick style shapes out of the wood, so not a fully necessary piece, but it would be really quite nice. Yeah. It's more that the ratios of... I see you. It's more that the ratios of number of wood blocks required to the number of products returned is a little ridiculous. I mean, the only one to me that ever made any sense were slabs, because, of course, it just turns out the math, like, you are simply splitting it in half, which is all you're doing. That makes perfect sense. But I mean, 6 cubic meters of wood, and you get 3 doors. Don't know about you, but that sounds to me like a heck of a lot of garbage. But it wasn't meant to be realistic. That's the key. Yes. I really do think concrete blocks be able to be slabs and stairs, and actually I wouldn't even mind if they started categorizing in that way, similar to stone, once they're turned into concrete. Same thing, I would love, like, all of the terracottas to have that ability as well, because truthfully, once you fire them, they're basically stone. Like that, those things just, in my mind, just make sense. Because I will say, there's a lot of things that I would do with the plain terracottas if I could make them into other shapes rather than just cubes. Anyway. I guess there's a good question for you. We've talked about additional woods we'd have. We talked about additional things we'd like to do with woods. But if there's any... if you could convert any random material from the real world into something in Minecraft, aside from the ones we've talked about already, what sort of thing would strike you as something you would want in Minecraft? I don't even have a seed answer for that one. But I was just sort of thinking, well, what would I add to Minecraft if I could? It could be a building block, it could be material. I would love to see some sort of plant-based fabric, a la leather or something like that. I think it'd be kind of fun for say, for example, cosplay reasons. The one we're doing, some people put leather on, armor stands or whatever, just to be able to have different colored outfits. But I think it'd be kind of fun to have some sort of plant-based thing. But once that would be mine. I think would be sort of plant-based dyeable fabric. While I'm not all about the RPG, the RPG side of it, I know some people do have RPG behaviors. That would be kind of cool. But it would also be fun to be able to, if one had a fabric like that, I mean, it'd be kind of fun to have stuff like, faux canvas. I mean, it sounds silly, but I get a kick out of when people try to make campsites or awnings for things or whatever, and they make it out of big cubic blocks of wool. It just looks odd to me. I understand why they do it that way, but it just looks odd because, I mean, the same reason, like, you don't have slabs. So unless you want to use carpets and string to make it float, and there's a lot of gaps in between that, making like a canopy doesn't really work. Want the slab look to try and make the roof shape look a little more realistic, then stuck with using like stone or wood materials. I don't know about you, but that just looks odd to me if I'm going to have like a garden party canopy all made out of wood. Yeah. I also think it would be nice, sort of like one of those nice to haves, if things that you dye could be re-dyeable within reason. And the reason I say within reason is for objects where you're not really dyeing it, but you're more almost painting it, then I would love to see when you re-dye it, it just turns that new color. That would make the life simple. Or even if you had to quote unquote wash it off. I mean, now that we're looking at sort of like bleach or turpentine or whatever, you're stripping it. That's fine. Like that concept I could totally go with. And I mean, within reason, I think it would be nice to see some of the dyes, like how you have to combine two different items together, which can make a dye on their own in order to get some of the dye colors. It would be kind of neat if, say, you had, I don't know, a red block and wanted to turn it pink. Then it would be kind of cool if you could take said red block and just put white dye on it. Turn it pink. Particularly if you were doing it with, say, wool blocks, that would be pretty obvious as a simple one. But I mean, if it's something like wood, maybe it would or wouldn't work. No bad puns intended. Because it depends on whether you want to look at, well, did you paint it white instead? Or put some sort of wash to make it look pink? Yes. I would agree with Grief on the whole blocks of dye thing, but I hadn't had a chance to listen to that one yet. But I definitely think that would be a great idea. And they could use something along this similar vein to the way the colors look for concrete powder versus way they look for concrete powder versus finished concrete. Because there's times color-wise where the concrete really works well in its powdered color. I'd like to see that. It's actually interesting because one of my kids was asking me the other day about why I had used concrete powder and string to float the powder in my Egyptian builds rather than the solid colors. And part of it was because I wanted the lighter color. Part of it was because I wanted this light texture that was involved in the concrete powder. But it was one of those things where I would love to see some of those lighter tones available from time to time. Or, I mean, another one that might be kind of interesting is we had an opportunity of finding some sort of way the terracottas that maybe if you dyed it twice, that it might remove some of that brown tone underneath it. That gives it, because some of the terracottas are really useful to use, that they have that horrid brownish, orangey kind of tone to it all the time. And there are certain builds where the darkness they've got of the color works really well, but doesn't work with that brown undertone. exactly, sir. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is being able to wash the color off a dyed shulker. I totally agree that should be extended to other things. I can get if you maybe couldn't wash it out of something, like maybe leather, but there's an opportunity there in that particular example, or for wool, for example, if you're washing it off, maybe the only option you could get in that was white. So, for example, your leather might start out brown, but if you dyed it a color and then washed it off, maybe, or even just tried to wash undyed leather, that you actually would get white, as though you bleached it. That might be kind of a funky mechanic. You mix colors similar to how beacons can be done. But yeah, well, that's I think they wanted to try and stick to their original 16. I don't know why I skipped. I think they wanted to stick to the original 16, but of those 16, we've got some of them like cyan or the lime or purple, magenta, whatever, where in some of the objects it might be kind of nice to say, okay, well, I've got, I don't know, far too much blue of the concrete powder I'd made. So if I just dye this blue concrete powder red, and I'll get purple. You know, that sounds sensible. I can maybe go with, like, but if you had turned it into concrete and then tried to re-dye it, that you wouldn't get the blend purple, that you, in that case, would get red blocks because you're not really dyeing it at that point, you're pink. That'd be kind of cool. Everything should become purple. Well, it's actually funny because growing up, purple was my absolute favorite color. I even like shades of purple, a la like lavender, for example. And I quite like proper indigos, although that's more of a blue hint or blue hue. But purple was my absolute favorite color, and I was one of those girls who liked purple, unicorns, and rainbows. But that's about as girly as I stayed. And I quite like royal purple, so one of my absolute favorite t-shirts I wore till it was a rag was one somebody bought me from a store called The Body Shop that was supposed to be royal purple, and the writing about, I don't remember, I think it was about sort of like take care of yourself type of mantra, was all in yellow. So yeah, that was my favorite combo. Growing up, I discovered the thing that people call doing your colors. I don't particularly care or pay a whole lot of attention to what people's colors are, but I do recognize that there are certain colors some people, including myself, just don't look good in. And it's different for every person. Sometimes it's shades of particular colors.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Uh-oh. What should we not do, Grief? Everything purple? That's actually a fun usage of that sound. For those who haven't been here in a while, just for curiosity's sake, I try not... No, pretty soon we might start thinking orange is to Zerk as purple is to Grief. For those of you who haven't been here for a while, just that sound reminded me that for LEGO Redeems, I kind of didn't really like the surprise jump scare of the super short LEGO mini kit collection sound. So for LEGO Redeems, it's now the Monty Python clip for, and now for something completely different. When we get the server reboot, I will probably fire that one up and then go to the LEGO, one of the LEGO clips for the day. Heads up for any of the mods in channel. As far as I know at this point, my son has decided he does not want to go to his sister's soccer game or soccer practice tonight. Therefore, I may have an opportunity to stream. It'll just be still more chopping because I expect that we're probably not going to get down to the bottom in any time super soon. But there may be an out-of-band stream happening if does confirm after school that he doesn't want to go this evening.
And there was much rejoicing.
Hello, Thief's Life! Glad to see you. You're welcome to drop in anytime, and there's never any pressure to chat. You can always rejoice about that one. Yay! And thank you very much for the follow recently. I did apologize for missing that one. Didn't pop on screen because it was in the streams, but always great to have a new friend on board.
Hello.
Hello! I also need new sounds for that. So I'm debating, because it's popular right now, it might be kind of fun to throw in the Kenobi's hello there. That's been done, but always a fun tool. Yes! Yes, yes, two and two together. The thing with you, Poppy, is I can't keep track. I'm trying to keep track of everybody's name, but I keep forgetting. So if I miss and mess it up, do please remind me, because I would love to be able to call you by whatever name you were currently preferring. Thank you very much to Grief and Zerk for having a better memory than I. Let me write that down. Latest piece of scrap paper. Oh, there's one. I actually wrote that down. Right there. I got it written down. Yeah, D&D, it can change things. Change a person's name quite a lot. I've seen a few that answer better to their D&D name than they do to their Twitch name. That's totally... Okay, so I wrote down a big underscore under Poppy. That lets me know that's the one you'd like. So, just in the spirit of playing around with all the features that Twitch has, some of the features that Twitch has to offer for me right now, just there may, in the next day or so, start seeing a little thing on the bottom of the screen that's just a follower goal. No reason more than round numbers and just where things are going. Bit of an internal test, because some of the quote-unquote advice sites are suggesting, whether you have a reason for your goal or not, they're saying sometimes putting one up there can affect people's willingness to get your little reminders to return. So I may experiment with that one. That goes. Well, they do say that home is where the heart is, so if a particular name feels like home, you have a connection to it, right? It's a bit of your online you, your online who you are. Although I would say, people also do people also do say that you are what you eat, so I guess if that's the case, last night I was rainbow cake. Ooh, must be 11 o'clock. Okay. So...
And now for something completely different.
And off we go to Lego. All right. So we're on our third bag and final bag of the build. Let's see, look at what. Excellent. And so we actually, I was asking if anyone on stream knew what this portion was at the bottom of a tower for our build. And my kids have been watching, so Sheep Queen popped in right afterwards and said, "Mom, why don't you know what that is?" And I said, "Oh, am I supposed to know what that is?" She goes, "Of course. It's the Devil's Snare." Oh, yeah, facepalm. So your character would drop through from the trap door, in theory, straight down into the snare at the bottom. And be all trapped until they remembered how to get out. That's kind of sneaky, and I hadn't thought about that. A bit of a doofus, but yes. Can't call myself a Potter fan if I can't figure that one out. So, we are... where are we here? Okay, yeah. Sorry. I tried to make a bit of sense of this mess on the desk here, so that I could actually find things, and I promptly couldn't find things. So yeah, that was helpful. But it beats spending the time digging around. We've got another little pin, probably for connecting to the main building. And then we've got a big gray chunk. Got a funny looking one, actually. Lego Echo Hype. Oh, sorry about that. Give me just 1 second. Hopefully that should be better. Sometimes I get just the right angle on my main mic that if I don't mute it when I come over to do Lego, then it will, what's the word? They'll both pick up, so you get a bit of an echo. Lego, 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 Lego. Could also be everybody saying Lego. That's possible too. So yeah, there's the carrot hype, and I'm really glad that you chose to use that, Poppy, because it reminds me that we are still a ways away from being able to have follower emotes for this channel. At the moment, we just have the one non-free emote for tier 1. Non-free being as in, like, I've searched the web and got a bunch of free ones that I quite liked. And so Sus and Oof, I think, will probably stay. But looking to change the others. And I've been looking into follower emotes, but it looks like I have to have 60 days of stream since becoming affiliate. So I will probably have that by about maybe mid-August-ish, I think, is my guess on that one. So that's not too bad. It's a little longer than I'd hoped for, but that gives me time to do a bit more research and potentially collect more art that I want to turn into emotes. Because I've got a couple of tips off of Dream Scheme, strangely enough, but with LJ, and tips on how to put together and make, like your own custom emotes for free. So I'm looking at either redoing some of the art or putting together new ones for that. So yeah, no rush on any of that jazz. Okay, starting to get somewhere here. I'm also curious looking over. Okay, it's not upside down. I was worried. So we've got a couple more straight corners. There we go. Oops. Lego Echo. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Instead of grabbing my tablet for the Lego desk, as I usually do, because I have a bad habit of leaving it on later on, I instead grabbed my phone. But as anybody who's ever tried to mod off a phone would know, by not being able to change the height of things in the screen, when I get my auto notifications of things like the server notice or one of the streamer notices, then it easily clears the chat right off the screen, like instantly. So if I miss something, then I get paranoid about going back and making sure that I didn't actually forget to talk about something critical. That's more of a paranoia than anything else. I can't remember what it was. There's an acronym for that. Like being scared to miss out on life or something or other. Which I admit to being addicted to. There was a time, I'm pretty close to it still, but there was a time when not having Discord dinging throughout the day with every single new message would have given me a headache just from the self-induced tension. I think I'm not quite that bad anymore, and I do miss conversations now. But on the bright side, though, it does mean that there's less opportunity for me to say something ridiculous and regret it later. And I regret things quite easily when it comes to stuff I've said on Discord. And speaking of Discord, FOMO, yes, that's the one. Fear of missing out. I live FOMO. Speaking of Discord, I do not have one for this channel, and that's somewhat intentional, partly due to the management of a channel, or management of a Discord, just be one more thing to do, but also that I've noticed some of the people who have Discords, they're really, really quiet, and because so much of the community that watches me either follows me on Twitter or knows how to talk to me through Dadgrass Discord, since I'm playing on his server anyway, then I really, at this point, don't see a need for it. But there is a long-standing random question on the Twitch channel about page, and so if anybody decides later on that they do think we need one, then they can vote over there. Otherwise, I really have no need to jump onto that bandwagon just yet, and some people are saying don't bother. So yeah. So we're building up the wall for the next layer, and I'm just going to finish off a couple more steps on this page, and then we'll head back to the game. So, I know it's a lot of pieces compared to what some of the other streamers who do Lego as well would do, but I know it's nice to do a step that feels somewhat complete. And then I have a better way of figuring out where I left off when I come back to it later on. That one. 2 flat pieces across the bottom. The flat pieces up the side. 1 and 2. I don't know if I can pick them up. Weird, my hands are nervously shaky today. That's odd. I have no reason to be nervous. I'm doing Lego anyway. And last but not least, another flat with a couple of beds on it. So this is where we are. It looks like the ground level of the tower portion is finished. We shall head back to the main game, and I'll see you over there. And of course we return to nighttime. That would be Murphy's Law. One of the few perks to running your own game, own world, rather than playing on a server, is that time doesn't pass if you're not on the server. Right? Like, you can't keep something loaded, or you have to AFK to keep things loaded. I mean, for specific areas here you do. Whole day-night cycle business just keeps going. So, of late, I actually, far more often than not, log back in and it's nighttime. Well, that's it. I'm part of a number of Discords, and one of the things I decided early on is just because I'm part of a Discord doesn't necessarily mean I have to be an active participant in them in very busy sorts of ways. So I choose to make Discord 73 my main Discord that I pay attention to, because the majority of the people I talk to are there. The odd time I will say something in, say, Choir's Life's Discord. And then there's people that, like, sometimes I'll say things in Huge Stormy Owl's Discord or Carnage Joe's Discord, but not hugely. It's people that if I can reach them elsewhere conversationally, then that's what I usually do. But I also have a few that I'll admit, because a couple of them I've got it picked up a habit from Ross, where there's a couple of them I've joined because I wanted their emotes, which is kind of cheesy, but yeah, wanted to be able to use their emotes. And that's what I've said for the Cyan Discord. For the mid-series games, I like those games, and once in a while they have an emote that's cool. And then there's another one that I pop my nose in from time to time for Sorcerer Radio, which is just like an all Disney, all the time kind of thing. It's not all Disney hits all the time. It's even like the stuff that Disney has licensed as ambient background tunes in the park. And they've got like 6 channels or something. And it's recorded music or recorded sounds of a ride through or something. But anyway, I popped into their Discord, and they've got quite a number of Disney emotes, which those of you on Discord have seen me use from time to time. So yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, I've got there's also a few, stream assistance related ones where I'm part of them, but I really only pop in if I need their support channels or something. One of them, some of the emotes are kind of sketchy in terms of like being sus, but that's just because the streamer admits right up front he doesn't want to be family unfriendly, but he doesn't really care about being family friendly. And so, yeah, my brand of squeaky clean, family friendly when it comes to emotes and stuff is not quite what his server does, so I don't use his emotes all that often. Hearing, but not seeing. Therefore, I think it's down in the hole with the pig. I'll admit, it was kind of funny. I'm trying to remember who it was I was watching the other day. Somebody that, I don't think it was somebody rated, maybe it was. Anyway, I was watching someone else, and some of our regular friends started bothering them with, or teasing them with sound redeems that weren't getting them, but I was digging this, and it sure as heck was getting me. A couple of creeper explosions, and wasn't nether stuff, because of course that would not bother me. But, yeah. Those sorts of things definitely got me. Part of it was because if I get on a roll and just moving along, stream row by row by row sort of deal, I don't realize that it's become night. I turn around and there's like half a dozen creepers. So one time it was night, and I came over to go to the bed, and I kid you not, there was like 6 creepers hanging around. So I ran off, and thankfully some of them had been around enough that when I came back there was only like 2 left to deal with, but still, it was annoying. But that's only because I don't mind having creeper explosions around. I'm not right now in an area where it really matters. But that said, too many of them, they're all going to surround you. Yeah, I've joined certain ones for emotes. I know there's quite often the owners of those servers are aware of that. There's 2 or 3 I've done that with. And then there's one my brother, the Discord server my brother runs for discussion of movies, television files and stuff like that. So of course I'm somewhat obligatory member of his. It doesn't necessarily mean I have a whole lot to say. Your own Discord for a family added a yeah. Well, it's, I mean, there's people that do that. I've seen that same sort of thing, Zerk, where people will find a cool emote on the web they want to use, and they'll just, like, some people, where usually they're in other Discords, but where they'll create a Discord server purely for that ability to have emotes that are just theirs that they can use in someone else's server. I don't see a problem with that, provided that you're not commercializing the other person's work. All good. Somebody says, hey, I like that emote, you can be like, yeah, I got it at such. I've got the lower end version of Nitro, not the higher one where you can boost servers and so on. But that was because, I can't remember what I was doing. I was going to upload something, I needed more space, and I wasn't able to use emotes cross-server. So, if one's not paying for Discord, then I believe you're only able to use emotes for the server, in the server that you got them from. I could be wrong, you're welcome to correct me on that. But anyways, what it really boils down to was, for me, at this time, there won't be a Discord for this channel because I have no custom emotes that are really worth adding to anything. And I know everybody else about on other methods, so it's not like I'm missing out on anything. And the other thing is, of people who are not part of Discord 73, for example, every one of them that I know so far via streaming are members of somebody else's Discord somewhere, which means that they still are guaranteed to have the ability to DM me in Discord if they wanted to. So that means that I'm still reachable there. So I don't eat, sleep, and breathe any of my hobbies, although streaming is probably the closest to that in gaming. But that said, we spend a lot of brain power on the scouting stuff we do. Technically, I'm not the point person this year. But by doing that, it just means that there's not a whole ton of mental cycles for managing one more thing. And do it right, one would need a crew. And to be perfectly honest, as the Zerks can vouch, it takes me a bit before I grow up, or, I don't know, muster the courage to actually ask. And I try really hard not to expect anything from anyone. So, staff, I wait till I actually have a serious need for it before I ask. A Fantastic Sherlock Fox got dragooned being a mod the very first stream weekend, and part of the reason for that was because something I had read somewhere, I think, scared the daylights out of me, and sorry, halfway through there. And so I felt that if I didn't have at least one mod, I wouldn't have any protection, and so that people would, get wind of it and stuff would go wrong live on stream. Because I wasn't able to keep up with what I was doing, as well as trying not to be stage fright and interesting and, all those things. Some of that hasn't changed, but anyways, so that I was actually highly considered I'd get a bunch of bannables or whatever, and without a mod who wasn't me, I really didn't feel safe. And so I dragooned Fantastic Sherlock Fox in there. He's been hanging around pretty reliably since, except for some of his meetings. Zerks dropped in really quickly, but it took me a day or two before I got the guts to ask them. They would be one of my come and go mods. That's really all I expect of any of them, is come and go mod. I mean, Neon's listed as one of them, but he hasn't been around for quite some time. I had more luck with Neon when I'm doing evening streams, just because that means that I'm not interrupting or preventing him from enjoying time with his father and stuff, out doing things during the day, or running errands, or traveling from place to place, or whatever it is he's up to that day. So, although he's mobile, he's less mobile in a sense than others, just because sometimes availability of connection. Well, that's one of those elements, PP Zerk, where I eat, sleep, and breathe scouting. Because the stereotype everybody knows is the scout motto of be prepared. Sometimes I take that to extremes. So for example, I know it sounds really weird, but for example, people say when you go camping, or particularly as a scout, that you need to have your pocket knife with you or whatever at all times. I don't have a pocket knife, I've got two. One folding and one fixed blade. So it's that sort of thing. I mean, if you need, some people say take at least 3 feet of duct tape with you. When you go somewhere. I think I probably got 15. They say like 2 feet of paracord with you. I've got 50 feet. I used to carry 2 types. Those sorts of silly things I get a little too far. So when it comes to streaming, I'm over prepared, but that allows me to, in theory, put less requirement on any of them. It's like when you do physics sense. It's like you may be able to tow something with one length of cord, but if you put in some pulleys and have multiple lengths of cord, you don't end up with redundancy, but you end up making the job on every bit of your rope or cord lighter. And there's still jobs that I do after stream's over. Like, for example, if someone has had to ban someone, because of the bot I'm using being stupid in one respect, in that it can't yet clear the user list after some banned. Like, I mean, they'll stop showing in the live section. At that. as in they're not the current viewers, they don't show up in the all-time, or sorry, they don't disappear from all-time users list. And oh fiddle, suppose we're down to Cobble then. Well, first, yeah, so they're in the all-time list, and that just means that yeah, so instead, after people ban somebody, I go and stick them in a group where it's marked as unwanted bots. Okay, well, yes and no. Just about everybody and their dog prefers Stream Elements or Nightbot. Those are the top two. I would honestly, those are very good systems. I quite like them. Depending on what your computer can run, want remote bots, as in not hosted locally on your computer, then go with those. You know, Nightbot or Stream Elements. Personally, I like Stream Elements because I have an all-in-one, everything's there solution. Part of what happened that made me change my mind was that Stream Elements had a hiccup at one point where things were either, well, they still have been, either were incredibly delayed or in some cases not firing at all. And they had a couple of nights where their overlays didn't even work. One night where their whole website was down, so you couldn't check what was going on. Bit of a pain. So when that happened, I got the idea that although it didn't affect me directly, I felt it was better for me to continue experimenting with looking elsewhere for other bots. And I went with one called StreamerBot or Streamer.bot. And one of the reasons I like that one is because it's incredibly flexible. The way it's designed is you have a spot where you can put in whatever your trigger is. So it might be a command, like an exclamation, whatever. It's categorized in different pages as to what your triggers are going to be. So, so let's say I put in a command like question of the day, and then I go into an actions tab, and I name whatever my action's going to be called, and then it's filled with sub-actions that actually tell it what to do. So in the question of the day command, it's pretty simple. Then I just pick from a pull down that says, okay, I want a message sent to the Twitch channel, and here's what it's going to say. Now the Twitch channel message variables in it that it can pull from usernames or files that you've created or whatever, and that allows me to have more flexibility. The actions can also be triggered by points redemptions. So you create your points redemptions through StreamerBot rather than through Twitch, so that the StreamerBot owns them. Then you can have your points redemptions triggered to anything you want. So, for example, I've got and please don't trigger it at the moment, just because it would probably throw me, but I've got a couple of sound redemptions where I managed to find a couple of different versions of the sound. So for people use creepers, and some channels you'll hear just the creeper hiss. Other times you'll get the creeper hiss with the explosion. One of the advantages of StreamerBot that you don't get by a lot of other systems is that then I can throw a randomizer into it and tell the action that it's going to pick from this list of two different sounds on a random basis that I don't even know how frequent one is over the other. And then so sometimes you'll get the hiss, and sometimes you'll get the one with the hiss and the explosion. I think I've got another one that's like that too. Either it's like that, or if it's I don't remember which one it is, but I've got another sound that's like that too. Same with the welcome commands, like how it welcomes and says hello and pops up stuff on screen and so forth. If you use something like Nightbot or Stream Elements, you're limited to the text commands for that. So you could actually do you have to do a text command where it's you'd have to do it similar to a shoutout. Basically, it's welcome to so and so, and then glad to see you're here or whatever it is, but it would have to be triggered by somebody actually typing into the command welcome and then the username they're welcoming. So this one can scrape the chat and give responses to that. But in with that, with the welcome, or even a shout out, I can have it do a bunch of random responses. So the welcome text you got, Poppy, would have been a choice, a random pull from a choice of 4 different phrases that it can choose welcome. But all of those would pull the username from who just talked, and then it would do a random pull from the text. But Stream Elements and Nightbot don't have that randomizer ability. Plus, they don't have the ability to trigger stuff in your broadcast software. I love it because every once in a while, well, more frequently than I'd like to admit, I get onto playing the game on. I've got a 2-monitor setup, so I get into playing the game and sort of having blinders on for the screen, which means that unless there's a sound with it, like the Mr. Bean hello, I don't always catch that somebody's here. In fact, I'm running a third-party app called here, Twitch Chat Overlay, and it's just once again, it's a little local app. But the reason I'm running that is because it puts a transparent chat screen over top of my game that you guys don't see. I've added chat to the stream itself as well, so that you guys can see it, but it still wouldn't be overlaid for me to see. So when I'm getting blinders on, it's kind of right on the screen, but I still miss things. But I can welcome people that way. Also, when it comes to bots, one of the other things I like is I've got cheater buttons on my Stream Deck. So I actually have one of the Elgato branded Stream Decks, and very much like Dadcrafts or Peregrine 78s or anything else. Thanks to Fantastic Sherlock Fox, got me one a while ago, and I fell in love with it, and then so we upgraded. But point being, there's an extension for that by a gentleman goes by the name Bar Raider, and he made one for Twitch where it actually has helpful, I call them cheaty buttons. But what it means is if somebody has chatted in the chat, then I can easily hit a button that looks like a little chat bubble, and then it'll show me a visual list of everybody who's chatted. I can just press a button, and it should do a shout out. See? Just like that. So what I've done in my streamer bot to connect with that is that when it sees the shout out command, it scrapes that information and triggers it just the same way it would if if a moderator had typed shout out Creef78. Yeah. But by being visual, I'm not going to do it right now, but there's another cheater button from that same person, which saves me from having to get the mods to do raids for me. That it actually tracks who I follow is currently live. And right now it just says 3 live on it. And if I press the button, it shows me who's live currently, as well as optionally, if I turn it on, a little single screenshot any of what they're currently doing. So that helps me as well. So that helps me as well when it comes to able to do raids, because sometimes the people I like to follow every once in a while won't be playing Minecraft. And as I experiment with other games, I may actually be starting to follow people who don't play Minecraft, in which case I want to make sure I don't accidentally pick somebody to raid into on a Minecraft day that I should have been using instead on one of my whatever Wednesdays. And in all honesty, there's a lot of cheater tools in that respect. There will be for our mods coming. Streamer.bot just came out with a new feature that I like. So let me back up one step. Streamer.bot is an app you download and run on your computer. You even need to start it up before you start up your OBS. Because it works if you do it after, but kind of janky. It's sort of hit or miss. Because if you start it up first, more reliable. And it can, with the visual stuff, what it's actually doing is telling different scenes to have particular content and then making them visible or invisible, or hidden. one of the features it just came out with is ability to have secure what they call HTML decks. So if you guys have ever heard of services like Leorin Board or the other ones, but there's a bunch of them where you can basically make a web page that has buttons on it, clickable buttons that basically do the exact same thing. So it's like a visual Stream Deck on a web page. StreamerBot just came out with their own version of that, which means that if I want to, for any command that would be an exclamation point, something or other, for example, on my screen, or to do, I don't even need to have a trigger like that, I could have some other thing, but then I could actually have a web page that mods could click, and then the command itself never shows up in chat. It does the thing without showing up in chat. And I just haven't gotten into that one because it's a really new feature that came out just last week. It take me a little while to set up what I do and don't want and how I want it to look and so on. But what it does is they've actually built an encrypted tunnel via WebSockets to from the StreamerBot app that would be running on my computer out to the web page. All it really, they want everybody you're using it to have a free account on StreamerBot, which is peanuts to most people. But they can use a throwaway name or whatever. But in any case, I think it's related to the Twitch name. I'll have to look into that. But in any case, so by doing that, then I can actually give the webpage address to anybody that I want to mod for me, and they can click clicky buttons and do things as though they had a Stream Deck. Kind of cool. Ignoramuses? No. In all honesty, one of the other reasons I like this bot, and it works for me and it doesn't work for everybody else, but is because I could play around with it. Like, there's actually quite a large library of things you can do as part of your actions. So you can add delays, and all kinds of things. But the other thing I like is I know how to more or less read through bits of C# code to make sure that it's generally doing what I want it to do. Fantastic Sherlock Fox is far better at it than I am, so he helps me troubleshoot every once in a while. I'm not a code writer, but I'm a code reader, which basically means that this bot appealed because it's also got a C# compiler and an engine, so that if you point it to the right system files as well, for that particular function you're running through it, or chunk of code, I guess is probably a better way of putting it, then anything anybody can write in C# can be made into actions. And while I don't use that very often, the extensibility is really appealing, because there's millions of things I could do with that part of the stream that I just don't. Yeah, like, I mean, part of it is I've dipped into quite a lot of different kinds of code, and some of them are considered real code, and some of them are considered sort of fake code. Like, as in, for example, I used to muck around a little bit with not creating mods for World of Warcraft, but altering the existing mods, and altering JSON files and stuff like that, which is great, fine. As anyone who's played with some of the Foxy No-Tail add-on material for Bedrock Minecraft, where sometimes you have to muck around with different kinds of basic files to be able to get it to do what you want in terms of AdSense. Greek. Don't I wish. But, that sort of stuff. I mean, I will say I have not been code savvy, so to speak, since the days of, like, being in school and learning basic go-to commands. Step 10, you do this thing. Then step 20, you do this other thing. Then step 30, go back to step 10. Like that kind of stuff. I guess that's not really true. It used to be pretty hot at HTML4, which is quite a while ago. But anyway, long story short being able to know the basic concepts, really where it's at. When I went to school and university, I could not get my head around the object-oriented programming. That one just blew my mind. I tried. Strangely enough, if one had passed, I can't remember what level it was, typing 10, I think it was, high school, like the intro level typing course, then they wouldn't let you take Computers for Idiots University as your semi-required computer course. So the lowest course I was allowed to take was Intro Object-Oriented Programming. I don't know why that was the case, but that's what it was. But yeah, there's a lot of like terminology. But the question boiled down to Poppy had asked about bots I recommend. So I'm really enjoying Streamer.bot. I don't do a lot with it, but if you guys wanted to watch a Minecraft streamer that does use it, I am aware that Foxy No-Tail uses Streamer.bot, although I've never directly asked him about it. But a couple of times wanted a reminder about something or a little pop-up on his screen for whatever it was, and so he literally just built it live on screen, like live during his stream, and then he'd fire it up from there on in. That's how I found out he was using it. Which basically means then, if you guys ever want a command that's either just for you, or a command that's public to everybody, like, I don't know, I think what you would want as a public command, but anyways, but if you want one that's just for you to use, or one that everybody can use, then feel free to go ahead and claim that once you've got an idea. And we can go ahead and build just about anything. So that's one of the beauties of this software. And one of the other things is in basic concepts in terms of terminology when it comes to coding. One of the reasons I like your .bot software is, at minimum, when you've got even just trying to print stuff to, like, print a command to the screen, or a message to the screen. The long story short, sorry, I'm laughing at what Zerg said about Monty Python. Is even if I'm just simply trying to print a command to the screen, being able to say, if it happens to be, well, if I type something into the screen, to ignore and not actually put the response message. But if, you know, if Preef does, or if Poppy does, type something into the screen, like a particular whatever it is, then it will respond. Like, I like those sorts of exceptions, I guess, being exception rules, because it makes it a little more extensible. It does a little more of what I would like it to do. Yes. And derailing on languages, Greek is one of those ones I thought I'd like to learn, but actually, in all honesty, I think I probably would derail on Greek specifically. I would probably jump straight to Latin, just because I find it interesting to find etymology of words from the Latin, particularly in the science realm. There's a good question for you, though. If you could, in a nutshell, without too many problems, learn any human foreign language, what would it be? So, I mean, some people have bucket lists. They're various different. One of mine would be Latin, partly because of my background. One of them would be Norwegian, but baby steps on that one. I had originally intended to take Norwegian at one point after university, but of course it's a Germanic language, so I figured, okay, well then I would probably do well to start learning German. Yeah, depends what's going on around you at the time as to whether or not your focus is there. So yeah. My German teacher was not too impressed when one of the classes we got to write journal entries about something we were doing on a regular basis. And the topic my partner and I chose was to journal the life cycle and growth experience of basically growing his pet sea monkeys, which are basically a tiny type of brine shrimp. Grow in a little aquarium on your counter. You know, I actually find, I would agree with you, Japanese is a very appealing conversation. I probably, though, of the two would most likely go with, if I only had one Asian language to choose from, I would probably go with Mandarin, just because sheer population is causing Mandarin to be one of the larger business. On the other hand, same vein, please say South Korean, as opposed to North, simply because of a difference in government control over the dialect. If it was learning languages for fun, just for a lark, honestly, Afrikaans would be on that list. Part of it is because it has roots in so many other languages that I actually enjoy at these similarities in different languages. So I'm not really into Romance languages like French, but it is interesting to note the similarities between things like Spanish and Italian, or looking at Portuguese or whatever, the exploring languages, and look at the way that some of the languages other countries have developed as a result of where some of these countries like Spain have traveled to. Travel to is not the word. Well, they did, frankly. Yeah, for usefulness, Mandarin would be pretty beneficial. Also, partly due to the population, it's had a huge influence on some of the languages around it. So, like Thai, for example. Some of the other ones, like Japanese, there are words that are somewhat similar. But the other reason I find some of those languages interesting is because they're, like Greek, for example, Latin less so, but Greek, or maybe even some of the other ones, like I would like to learn, I guess, if I could easily learn languages, and become a polyglot. Yeah, there's your word for the day, polyglot. If I could easily pick up languages, I think I would probably enjoy learning one language per alphabet type. So, for example, I don't know which one I would pick, but I definitely would want one with a Cyrillic alphabet, one with I wish I knew the name of it off the top of my head. Middle Eastern, sort of more handwriting look. But I would want one of those. Sounds like I'm shopping. I would like to learn a Scandinavian language, but using some of their Old Norse type alphabet structure. So here's a did you know related to language, actually. Kind of funny. We joke about words like ye as in ye old donut shop. Yes, that's a weird thing, but ye is actually not ye. It's not a Y sound as the North Americans and a lot of English speakers pronounce it. It's not supposed to be. Apparently, the history of that actually comes from Scandinavia with the Vikings and so therefore the Saxons. And that has to do with their alphabet called Futhark. And one of the letters looks kind of like how to explain it? Think of a capitalized I with the serifs on top. So like you've got the line on the top and the bottom, like an I-beam shape. And then off of the right-hand side, you're going to put roughly in the center, almost a triangle shape so that it makes the I-beam sort of look more like a letter P with a top and bottom. And that letter, I cannot for the life of me at the moment remember what the name is, but it's pronounced as though it's got a TH. I think it's actually Thor. Yeah, not surprising. But it's the TH in Futhark. However, a lot of scribes actually had trouble writing it correctly. I don't know why that is, but they apparently did, and substituted it for the shape that became our letter Y. And so, in the printing term, like when the Gutenberg press came and so on, people were still doing that. They didn't have a letter on the press for this Thor character, so therefore they kept it with the Y shape. And so, even though technically the YE that we see as E in they and thy and ye and all that kind of business, is actually supposed to be a th. So ye is actually the, just like we would normally use the or the. If you're talking about the old, it'd be the ye old donut shop. It'd be the or the old donut shop. So that was kind of cool. So I mean, it's things like that. I love the way language is constructed. There's a word for it, but one of the occupations I think would be fun, if I had actually been any good at literature courses, would have been linguistic anthropology, or more accurately, linguistic etymology. That would have been one of my fun things. But I don't know. So we've heard from Pippi Zirk that I know she'd love to learn some Afrikaan. Zirk and Kreef and Poppy, and even Fantastic Sherlock Fox if you're still there. What sorts of languages would you guys like to learn? And a brief why. Yes, you're dead on, Kreef. So hear ye, would be the, or hear thee. However, it does actually have the dual meaning of the, as in the old donut shop, but it also does have the transferred itself into you. But you're right that the th still would have been involved because it's you, the populace, you, the crowd. Yeah, and that's part of why, apparently, what I understand, according to, I'll find the website for you, but a gentleman who is one of the last official town criers in England, that you properly use the phrase hear ye before you actually say whatever it is that it must be followed by the thing you were trying to say. So that it becomes, in essence, the practicality of it is, here are the news, here's your headline. So in the same sort of way that North America has taken up the extra, read all about it, and then they tell you what the headline is. Nobody stops at read all about it and just leaves it there. In the same sense, then, we shouldn't be stopping at hear ye, because we actually have to follow a said headline. I like the Afrikaan word of the stream. I like that, word of the day thing. I'm horrible. I should have written it down because I have forgotten, other than the fact that we talked about shovels at one point, and to say that how we say that we liked something, or that it was a very nice, whatever it was. Like, so I remember that has happened, but that's as far as I remember. I've lost the content. Then again, it's no surprise that my favorite character from Disney movie Finding Nemo is Dory, because although I'm not as short a memory as her, sometimes I remember things about, well, in the role. Start accidentally and catch on, though, are some of the best people. I mean, I admit, it just with scouting stuff coming up in camps and whatever that had happened, I have not sat down and watched the entirety of the streams for the last stream weekend, which is too bad because I have a lot to learn about the goings on of the Kreef base, and potentially some axolotls. I felt really bad that I wasn't able to pay as much attention to that, but stream weekends are funny because I want to be in everybody's stream, particularly on the Diecraft Study weekends. I'm just absolutely terrible at being able to do so because I want to spend family as well. For an entire weekend, that's an awful long time not hanging with them and doing the family thing. Yes. Now, my recommendation, Kreef, stick with France French. Basically, the Quebecers would think you're just being pretentious and possibly a bit snotty. But if you learned Quebec French, France French often think that it's people with bad manners and bad habits. and will frequently not respond to you in equally kind ways. But also, French is neat if you have an interest in, because French used to be the national diplomacy. So documents and stuff, even in the sort of English colonial expansion, one official document, you often had it written in French, partly because English actually had so many shifts to who was in control the British Isles that their language didn't stabilize for a very, very long time. Bad manners and bad habits, that mean everything. Not unless you try and give your neighbors cans of maple syrup. I'm actually only half kidding on that one. Yes, they do. Although I think I mentioned in stream last week that the French recently banned the terms esports and streaming or streamer. If you're talking about things that stream, like as in pouring water, fine. But yeah, the esports one is like they're trying to keep their language clean from anglicization, and so they banned those terms. But you're allowed to refer to the concepts. It's just a streamer is somebody who basically is the literal translation comes out as games indirect. Not indirect as in not direct, but direct games. Whereas I think esports came out something along the lines of like additive video games, which is really insane. I mean, I'll give some languages credit for that when they let new terms come in. But that's how we branched into the Quebec versus France French conversation. That stream was about was things like France. It's always I think it's dîner, I think is lunch, or like lunch hour, midday meal. Whereas Quebec has picked up le lunch. And I know Quebec uses they have like le hockey, but it's actually a contraction. I can't remember quite how to pronounce it correctly. I'll figure that one up. And hamburger, which is the hamburger. But I'm not quite sure how the French refer to hamburgers, like McDonald's and stuff. But it's really quite amusing because even in France, there's regulations on what your signs can and can't say. So you can't even use an English word as a business name when you apply for your permission to be a business in France. You actually need to have a French name, which is weird. So, like, you can have whatever other company operating as a French name company. But it's just weird how that works out. I mean, McDonald's and stuff can get away with calling themselves McDonald's simply because that's actually a last name. It's not an anglicized word. They can get away with that, but it's really insane. Now, I mean, while I think French is insane, as I understand it, they don't regulate people's names quite the same way, whereas Iceland does. So if you were born in Iceland, or if you're having a child in Iceland, there's actually a registered list of names you're allowed to have. Your child must have one of those names on the registered list. Not allowed a foreign name there. Move in from another country, like emigrate there, then that's not as big a deal. But rumors on the travel websites have it, or on the immigration websites have it, that if you're emigrating to Iceland, it helps to get your immigration papers approved. If you happen to have like a name that's on that Icelandic approval list. Unlikely that's ever going to be, but supposedly there's a slightly larger chance you're going to get it delayed and or refused non-Icelandic. Odd. But at least the French aren't quite that stuffy. Yeah. So, but French is really useful. I mean, in business sense, or in more commonly in a historical sense, it makes it easy to read paper, and far more of the French spellings of things survived into English language in Europe than overseas or across the pond, I guess I'd say. I was mildly amused, though. If you think about the U.S. history loosely, I mean, in that part of it was refusing to be under the British rule in any way, shape, or form, and so therefore not a part of the Commonwealth, etc. That I thought it was kind of funny and sort of nonsensical that as part of the English Queen's Platinum Jubilee, they invited Lin-Manuel Miranda to do a song from Hamilton. Like, of all the choices, that one just made no sense. People enjoyed it. I'm not going to argue with that. But it's just kind of amusing because up to that point, they had been trying to be as British as possible. And that was one that was very, very American. So that was kind of funny. But I mean, on the other hand, like, you know, Americans deal with Juneteenth. Even the Canadians are kind of like, what? We don't even know what that is. On the other hand, in May, we had, like, Victoria Day, which is a celebration of a dead queen's birthday. So my question is, why specifically that one? I get that we had, you know, that Victoria had been queen of the Commonwealth during the time that Canada had been a country. Fine, I can get that. But it makes me kind of wonder why not keep shifting it. It is. Yes, some of the American words are archaic British words. Some of the accents are archaic British accents, though the American accents have often shifted a little bit based on locality. So they're more regional. What I mean by that is, even in East Coast American, where the language and exposure would stay closer to what would have come over from England during the time of people moving over. A New Yorker or someone from maybe Pennsylvania, I guess, but they're definitely notable, even a West Coast Englander, or Englander, that's not English person, or a London person. So it's funny how things shift. Some of the American spellings are the older English spellings, not Old English in terms of actually being called Old English, but it's an earlier English spelling. Some of them are not. So like this whole color business, or neighbor, where the Commonwealth people usually use a U in there, and the Americans do not. Although there's all kinds of funny why that could be stories that are fairly likely to be untrue, but some of them are as lame as the Americans deciding that it was less expensive both in the making process and in terms of what people would buy when they had to pay for adverts by the letter, words that didn't have those extra unpronounced letters in it. But nobody, like, part of the reason that these are urban myths that have been debunked multiple times is because if that really was the case, you know, dropping U's and stuff like that, then we have an awful lot of silent E's that could easily go the way of the dodo as well and have not. That's ridiculous itself. Yeah, so I mean, I would love to know, I guess, basically a wide collection of root languages. That's probably the best way of putting it, I guess. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I have a backlog of them in a playlist, ones I haven't got to yet, is on the Wired YouTube channel. They'll bring in a bunch of different experts on various different topics. And sometimes it's really neat to hear people talk about the various different accents from the US or the UK, or even other parts of the world, but being able to say where they come from. And then I've got also in that playlist one that had been posted on another YouTube creator's Discord, YouTube, or like Minecrafter by the name of Drama Smith. She's out of Australia, different part than our friend Carnage Joe, but one that they posted on Drama Smith's Discord I've added is talking about regional accents in Australia, because it's one that we don't talk about very often. People are very aware that there are regional accents Africa, but we don't talk about them very much, partly because history of said accents sometimes get into politics, a way that people don't really want to talk about. And particularly in that respect, racial politics. So I would love to learn more about that sort of thing as well. It's just that it's a little bit less easy to find. It wasn't the King song, actually. There's a, if you take a look at the some of the Jubilee summary footage, there's about a 15-minute piece from Andrew Lloyd Webber's official channel with musicals at the Jubilee, and wasn't the King song, strangely enough. I thought it would be, but it wasn't. One of the things I got a kick out of starting there was they both used music from musicals they had written and changed up the lyrics a little bit just to have a bit of a jibe at each other before they had the cast of the musical sing whatever the song was. But it quite surprised me on the whole in some of the choices they made for musicals, simply because it's kind of England, by its historic expansionism, has not exactly had the most shining reputation. Well, most countries haven't, but has not had the most shining reputation with regards to how it has treated other foreign countries. And on that one. And so it was just amusing that after some of the bad behavior English colonials, oopsie daisy. After some of the bad behaviors English colonials have had over the years, in parts of Africa, for example, got lucky there. To do a selection from The Lion King was kind of amusing. It's like, anyway. Well, on that note of a weird twist there, yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you're at all curious about the Jubilee proceedings, feel free, or not feel free, but I recommend taking a look, because the party at the palace was totally fun. Oh, okay. I was going to end the note of being at sitting on the beacon. I didn't expect yet another party, so these guys. You. You guys used to freak me out, but I'm not so bothered anymore. Part of it is because I finally got the library to the point where I can knock them back into a safety range. If they had some pretty serious knockback abilities for the crossbows, I might actually be try one. They also don't have infinity on the crossbows. Most is a little bit flaky here. Start up top, or end up top, because that way when we log out, we can come back on Thursday, then we, hold on for a second, then we won't be starting at night in the middle of a bad place. So we're aiming to get down to 70. We're down to 82, but we had some good conversation, and yeah, we're making some progress. So I want to say thank you very much to everybody who dropped by. I know we had Poppy and Tiz for Truth, and PP Zerk, and Zerk, and Fantastic Sherlock Fox, and Creef. It's quite a fun band. I really enjoyed it this time, guys. Always great to have you guys drop by. I'm going to head to the end screens. You'll see a few credits, and then we'll find somebody to raid. Right. So today's raid choice will... You know what? I think we're headed back over to Groova today. So feel free to say hi, and I hope he's doing something you guys are having a blast with. And we'll see you for more. Tomorrow will be Valheim, my first experience with Valheim, in the same time slot. So whatever it is for you 2 hours ago, it'll be the same time slot. And then on Thursday, I'll be back with more mining and shopping and chatter. So I hope you have a great day. Again soon.
Mislift managed.
we go.